Good evening, and thanks for joining us here at Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 269. We recorded this thing live on Monday, November 16th, 2015. I am your host for this evening, Todd Klindt. That works out well that it's Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast, and I'm Todd Klindt. Anyway, I'm your host this evening, and before we get too far down into the fun that we're going to have tonight and all the great things that we're going to discuss, go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the great SharePoint products that we've got out there. We've got dedicated SharePoint. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff. We've got Office 365, which I don't know if you've heard yet. It's got SharePoint in it now. We've got all kinds of great things out there at sharepoint.rackspace.com. We also have other Microsoft offerings. We're not just a SharePoint host. We've got all kinds of great things. And you can go to www.rackspace.com/Microsoft and find out about all the cool non-SharePoint, but yet Microsoft things that we've got going on. So check those out while you're out there. Go out to, I got a bunch of places on the internet that you can find just me. You can go to toddklindt.com and find out about me. I'm on Twitter at Todd Klindt. Recently, within the last week, I updated my LinkedIn profile. It's like the first time I've touched that thing in 4 years. So you can find me out on LinkedIn, and hell, pal me up or whatever they are on LinkedIn, pals or hombres or droogs or whatever. You hit me up on LinkedIn also and get that out there. And let's be friends on the internet. Let's use this internet for good, and let's be friends. All right. There we go. So for the production notes for this evening, and I've scrolled too many windows here. There we go. Was slow getting podcast 268 out. I'm going to tell you the reason for that was because I was out of town, and 266 and 267, those train wrecks that were Shane's episodes, that those got behind, and so I kind of staged them out. But in reality, I just kind of forgot about it and did, just kind of screwed that up. So I apologize for that. I will maybe be slow getting 269 out as well, and that's because tomorrow afternoon I'm taking off for a trip, and I'm going to be gone till like Friday night at midnight, and so I don't know when I'm going to do all the editing and all the production and all that. And this trip is vacation, like an honest-to-God vacation. Like me and the family are going to a place, and well, the kids are going to have fun, and I'm going to be mad because that's one of those things. When I was a kid, I always remembered wondering, why are my parents always so mad when we're on vacation? Because we're doing fun things, we're on vacation. Now that I'm a parent, makes perfect sense. But I'm actually going to be on vacation, so I don't know when I'm going to get all this stuff done. We'll see. And to make things worse, Lori, my executive producer and web mistress and all kinds of things, the magic behind all this, she is also going on vacation later this week, and it's also vacation, and she's going to have even less internet access than I will. So number one, that means I can't just pawn this stuff off on her, and number two, she won't be there to prod me, to remind me. So who knows? We might not get this one out until sometime in January. That's a realistic thing that could happen. But I will try to get it out. Try to get it edited and everything tomorrow, and then hidden on the internet so that it's easy for me to just turn on Thursday when I normally do. So that's some production-y stuff. Wanted to talk about a couple of other things. Over the last month or so, I have been tweaking some of the file names and stuff for the downloadable versions of this, the MP3 versions, the MP4 versions. I've done things like I've removed all the spaces from the file names. I have removed special characters from the file names, things like that. As I download other podcasts myself, I see what other podcasters are doing, and I kind of follow suit, because I don't have very many original ideas. And so I take cues from those guys, and I noticed that the lack of spaces makes things fit better. And so I've done all that. So let me know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, if there's any other things that you would like me to do. I've taken some special characters out, but like I noticed last week, the title had a bang in it, an exclamation point, and I left that in, and I don't know if that screws anybody up. I will, after I did that, and so I've got PowerShell scripts that create all those files and publish everything and do all that kind of stuff, pull the name from a place, rename the files, do all that. And I didn't recognize that exclamation point was in there until I had published everything. I was just too lazy to go redo it, but I did go in and change my PowerShell script so that I can, that those exclamation points will be taken out. So that will happen next week. But if there's any of the special characters or anything, let me know. Another symptom of that might be if you've got the RSS feed, but the file won't download because, there's a character that you can't download or something like that. Let me know about all that, and I will do that, or any other tweaks. And that reminds me, I would love your feedback. I'm, making changes, trying to keep this podcast fresh and as exciting as it was nearly 7 years ago now. So you can go out to toddklindt.com/podcast survey, fill that out. There's like 3 or 4 easy questions. One of them might even be your name, so you're going to get that one right. And let me know what you think, things I can do better, things that you already like. And I will try to incorporate those things into the podcast, or maybe I'll just have Lori do it. Could happen either way, but we'd love to hear your feedback. So give me a shout on that. And last, blatant pandering for your attention will be the charity site. Every year, here in a month or so, almost exactly a month from now, Lori starts up a charity drive. It's a thing I'll talk about a little more in a couple of weeks. But if you want to be involved in that, and you can give to any charity you want. It doesn't have to be a charity that I care about. It's not, Todd Klindt's benevolent charity for Todd Klindt or anything like that. It's whatever charities are close to you. Those are what I want you to donate to. But we keep tabs of that, and the URL for that is pointgowan.com/TKCharity, and that's pointgowan GOWIN.com/TKCharity. And last year we raised $2,500 ish, and we would like to raise even more this year. And by more we mean more than $2,600, something like that. We want to raise more, so we're kind of getting that started a little early this year. And that will wrap up on my birthday in January is when we really stop all that, and I get a card, and it's all great fun. So do that. Excuse me. And we'll hit that a little harder next month. But that is it for production notes. Okay, topics. It has been a busy week, and I didn't get everything in here that I wanted to talk about. And I just noticed that I also didn't put my PowerShell tip of the week in here. So doggone it, I keep forgetting that one. So I don't know if that stay right there. Nope. All right, that's not in there. Okay, so we'll have to have 2 next week, or 3, or whatever. So Tech Merrill in the chat, Tech Rev Merrill in the chat room is saying that he's getting a access denied error when he submits the survey. We've been getting that a lot. Okay, so Lori says that still works. So if you're out there in listening land and you fill the survey out and you get an access denied, you really didn't get an access denied. You just didn't get the thing at the end that tells you how many people have voted. So don't let that keep you down. Okay, so back to the topics, and Meryl, thanks for filling that out. Back to the topic. So a bunch of things to talk about tonight, and I'll try not to keep you guys too late. Again, there's football to watch. I got packing to do for tomorrow's big trip, all that. So we'll keep this short, concise, very, very peppy. This last week, or this last weekend, or some point here in the last 7 to 10 days, I forget, there was the big European SharePoint conference in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, this is a bittersweet thing for me. Of course, I like SharePoint conferences. The more the merrier, as I like to say it, because more SharePoint conferences mean I might get invited to more SharePoint conferences, and then I get to do cool things. So the European SharePoint conference this year was, like I said, a few days ago, and it was in Stockholm, which meant my good friend, Jorn Huisman, who is a SharePoint MVP and has the SharePoint Exchange Forum, or SEF, every year, did not have it because it would have been at the same time in the same city. You can see how that would not be a good thing. So I did not get to go to Stockholm. I didn't get to go to the European SharePoint conference, but a couple of folks did, a couple of folks of notoriety, a guy named Jeff Teeper, a guy named Bill Baer, a guy named Seth Patton, and they, all folks from Microsoft, from the SharePoint team at Microsoft, and they did a couple of keynotes and did some great things. Bill has been on the podcast before, and once I keep thinking about moving this, and when I do, I'll have guests on more often, and Bill said he'd be back, so that's good. But they were up there, they did a bunch of things, but Jeff Teeper said some very exciting things. One of them was a very important announcement, and my advice for you is to get your VMs warmed up, get them created, get them spun up, get them patched, because SharePoint 2016 Beta 2, the sequel, will be coming out to internet browsers near you before the end of this month, the end of November. And today is the 16th, so just sometime in the next couple of weeks, we will be getting another beta of SharePoint 2016. And if you're like me, you're going to want to download that thing the day that it comes out. So get those VMs fired up, get them patched, get SQL installed, get out there and get on it so that when those beta bits drop, you'll be able to take advantage of them. Now, they did a whole bunch of talking about that out there, and there's some articles out there. But I kind of wanted to hit the highlights. Number one, it will come out before the end of this year. They're saying that it will be 99% feature complete. And so that's good. So as we're all trying to plan this, next rollout of SharePoint and practice our upgrades and practice our sizing and all this kind of stuff, the fact that it's going to be 99% feature complete this early on is awesome, because it's going to be that much easier for us to test. So hopefully we'll get a feeling for what it does and what it won't do. Always, for the last 3 or 4 versions of SharePoint, they always keep a couple of things tucked away that they don't have in the betas that they throw out at the end. But this is 99%, and that's good. It's good that they've given that to us. So we're going to want to test that. Another thing that they said was that 2016 will not be the last version of SharePoint SharePoint on-prem. And I'll have to go back and look at it, and actually I won't, because I'm just too lazy. But I am pretty sure that at Ignite, Bill Bear said that 2016 would be the last version, and that it was just going to be upgrades to all that, and that the 2016 is going to be the base. Sounds like I probably misinterpreted him, but 2016 is not going to be the last version of SharePoint on-prem. So for those of us with all the fancy SharePoint books and the SharePoint certifications and the SharePoint tattoos and all that kind of stuff, this is good news. This means we're still going to have jobs, 3-5 years out. Now, what will look like when it gets rolled out, and if it's going to be every 3 years like they've said, probably not. Every 1 year, however, and what the product's going to look like, what the installation is going to be, that all remains to be seen, and that's been changing over the last year, over the last 3 or 4 years. But there is still SharePoint work to be done, and that's good. And we've talked about it on the podcast before. That wasn't always for certain. There was a time 3 or 4 years ago, the dark days, when we just weren't sure what the future held for on-prem SharePoint and what the future held for IT pros and admins and all that. And it seems like the story has just been getting better and better. And this is another good thing for that SharePoint 2016 will not be the last version of SharePoint on-prem. They also said that there was going to be more hybrid scenarios, more cloudy things. I think we all know that SharePoint 2016 is going to be the gateway drug to SharePoint Online, the gateway drug to the cloud. And I suspect that each patch and major and minor version of 2016 is going to continue that tradition, and subsequent versions, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, whatever they call the next ones, SharePoint 2016, the next generation, whatever, they will continue to put more and more things to the cloud and really only have the things on-prem that have to be on-prem, which is good and bad. I've kind of got mixed feelings about it. I like the idea that we're able to use the resources up in the cloud, the compute and all that kind of stuff. But I'm always a little scary. That internet connection, it isn't as bad as it was when I started. But when I started being an IT guy, it seemed like there was a backhoe operators union, and they hated the fiber splicers union, and the backhoe operators would just go out and just destroy fiber everywhere that they could. And then that would, of course, take internet connections down. We computer nerds kind of got caught in the crossfire of this organizational war, this war of cultures between backhoe operators and fiber splicers. And of course, when everything's in the cloud, when that internet connection goes away, everything else goes away. Fortunately, I can still browse the internet on my phone and get on the internet to complain about my internet being gone. That's a God-given right. That's right there in the Constitution. But cloudy things, Office 365 things won't work. So there's good and bad. But I like the fact that on-prem SharePoint is going to be able to take advantage of all the great cloud things as they come out and continue to come out. So that'll be very exciting. I haven't been blogging a lot about SharePoint 2016 because I've been doing a lot. I've just been busy with SharePoint 2013 things and hybrid things, but I need to get on that. I've got a couple of SharePoint 2016 blog posts that I just have not gone through and published and all that, but I will get those out. You guys deserve it. You guys deserve more blog posts from me. Okay, the next topic here. Let's. This is a good one. This is a sad one. Okay, well, so those of you, the 5 of you, I've lost count now, of you that are still using Windows Phone. Good news is the new Windows phones, the 950 and the 950 XL, are starting to creep out now into the mainstream. You can order the 950 online now. You can go to microsoftstore.com, or I think AT&T's got them now. You can order that 950. It's not, I don't think they're delivering them yet. I think they're expecting them to be in stores on the on the 20th. And then they'll be shipping them out sometime around then. Right now, AT&T is only offering the 950, not offering the 950 XL just yet. And the only price point that they've offered, I think, well, they've got some of the next things. I buy all my phones, and so the only price I looked at was you can buy the 950 outright for $550. And but then they've got the whole, if you do that every 2 years, every 1 year, every 3 years, every whatever, they've got prorated prices. But the price, if you buy it outright, is about $550. And if they've got, if that's not enough, you'll be able to buy a Surface 3, not a Surface 3 Pro, but a Surface 3 64 gig for $400, $399, which is $100 off. I don't know if anybody's clamoring to get Surface 3s. Those are the ones. They run full Windows, but they have the Intel Z35 or 3735 chipset in them. And so they're just kind of weak. And it's the same chipset that all these little devices that I'm addicted to have in it. But the difference is the other devices have smaller screens. So I just expect to do less on it. And the Surface 3's got a larger screen. But those phones are out there. So if you're on AT&T, you can order the 950 now, and it'll be out. You'll get it here pretty quickly. It'll be in the store pretty quick. Dirk in the chat room is talking about Verizon. Yeah, I don't think Verizon's ever going to pick up any Windows phones. They seem to be very anti-Windows Phone. And honestly, Dirk, I think they're kind of doing you a favor, because if you bought a Windows Phone from them, we'll say maybe one called the Lumia Icon, just if we're making names up, you would buy that phone and you would think Verizon is going to patch this thing for me. And when updates come out, Verizon's going to let me have them. And when my firmware needs to be patched, Verizon's going to patch it. All of those things would be wrong, Dirk. And if Verizon were to give you a Windows Phone, it would just break your little heart in more ways than people who, like on AT&T, we get our hearts broken by Windows Phone all the time. You would get your heart broke even more on Verizon. So I think they're doing you a favor. A couple of notable things: the 950 XL does not show up on the AT&T site, and it's only available for pre-order on the Microsoft Store site. Another interesting thing is that if you order the 950 XL, you can do the whole alert me when it's ready. It mentions that it's available to get the free Continuum dock. The 950 is not. And if you missed the big hardware announcement that Microsoft made a while back, the Continuum dock is that dock that hooks up with the USB-C connector on the bottom of the phone, and then basically gives you the full computer experience. It's got HDMI and USB and other TLAs that you very much need to do computery stuff with your phone. Both the 950 and the 950 XL will support that, but apparently if you get the 950, you have to buy the Continuum dock separately. If you get the 950 XL, then you're going to get the dock included with the price. But again, you can't really order that yet. And you can also go to the Microsoft Store and see some of these. We've talked about this. I loved my Windows phones, and I've still got them over here. I've still got them charged up. I haven't completely lost faith, but I switched over to Android a few months ago. I forget when it was now. And I absolutely hate the Android OS. Absolutely hate the Android OS. Did battle with the Android OS this weekend, and I won a small victory. But again, I don't like the OS at all. But there's apps. I can actually use the phone, and that has been a big deal. So the battle that I had, I've got a Samsung Galaxy S5, and it's only got 16 gig of storage online here, which isn't bad. I've got an SD card in it where I keep all the things that you keep on SD cards, pictures, videos, copies of your resume, things like that. But the phone still, for like a month now, has been running out of space. So Android has a storage thing that you can go into, and you can say, show me where all of my storage is being used up. So it would say, of the 16 gig, 4.5 or so is used by the OS, 11.5 is used by apps, 300 megs used by cache, whatever. So clearly the 11 gigabytes for the apps and all that is the problem. So I click that to drill into that further, and it drills into the apps and media thing and only comes up with 5 gig of stuff, making it very difficult for me to clear up that other 6-ish gig because I don't know where it's at. So inside of that thing, it says, applications are 5 gig or whatever. And then I can click the button that shows me how much space each application is taking. And again, I started with 11 gig of space that it was taking up. It would only show me where 5 gig of that was. And then when I click the application thing, the largest application by size is 300 meg. And so I really just had no chance of trying to figure out where this, where the space was. I was happy to clear it up. I just couldn't figure it out. And then by accident, I was poking around in my podcasting app. I use, don't tell me I know this one. Oh, my phone's now locked up and it won't. Another reason, Pocket Casts. So I use Pocket Casts on Android to do all my podcasts. And I was poking around in there to add some podcasts, and I just happened to notice that it was saving all of my podcasts onto the phone. So I had it move all of the podcasts over to my SD card. It had like 2 gig of podcasts on there, but inside of the Android storage, here's all your media, it didn't show up. So that freed up 2 gig of space, which was good, but just furthered my hatred for Android, of course, which is bad. But I would love to love Windows Phone, but I can't. I mean, the hardware is great. The OS is superior to Android in every way, but there's just no apps on it. One of the things, though, that I was clinging to was I used to be on Android, and then I switched to Windows Phone a couple of years ago. Loved the OS, hated the lack of apps, hated the fact that apps that I was using on the platform were actually going away. So I switched back to Android, hating Android, but loving Android's apps. And then at Build this year, and again at Ignite, Microsoft came out and said, we understand that you folks want some more apps. We've already got like 6 or 7 really good apps on Windows Phone, but we hear you folks want even more. So we've got a couple of techniques that we're going to use that will allow you to run Android apps on Windows Phone. Now, for those of you that have just been listening to this podcast, I love the Windows Phone OS. I love the Android apps. Being able to run Android apps on Windows Phone, it's like Christmas and my birthday at the same time. I was all very excited. And I went out to the website, xdadevs.com, xdadevelopers.com. Those are some guys that have been doing some crazy hacking on phones for a couple of decades now. And there was a big thread about it, and people were talking about how they were doing it. And I'm like, this is the thing. I mean, it stinks for Windows Phone developers. I get that. And it stinks for people that were going to make universal apps. But this is the thing. I'll be able to go back to Windows Phone now. So I was patching my Windows Phone with the new Windows 10 updates and getting my butt kicked left and right on that. But again, there was always this light at the end of the tunnel that soon I would be able to run Android apps on my phone, and all would be right with the world. And I would be able to take this S5 and sell it to some poor unsuspecting schmuck on the internet. And I would laugh and laugh as I boxed it all up. And you're getting an Android phone. And I would have my Windows Phone, and there would be a feeling of superiority there. It would just be palpable, unpronounceable, but palpable. But then this week happened, and word started leaking out that the internal project that Microsoft had, a thing called Astoria, is not going to happen, or is just kind of slowly gone away. And there will likely not be anytime soon or ever a way to run Android apps on Windows phones. And we kind of saw that coming as we were looking at the Windows Phone 10 betas, and again, reading the XDA developer threads. As new builds of Windows Phone 10 came out for those folks in the fast ring, the subsystem for running Android apps kept not being there, and pieces of it kept being missing, and you kept having to do more and more things to make Android apps run as new builds came out. And so we kind of all saw that coming. It's very sad. So part of me was really disappointed when I saw that, and I saw the headlines because, I've got, in all my news aggregating programs, those Windows Phone things come up, and I read the headlines, and I'm like, man, I just can't be more disappointed, because I really, really wanted to go back to Windows Phone. I really was looking forward to that. And the Android apps was perfect because I already had a bunch of apps and it was going to be great. And so I started reading some articles on it, and Brad Sams, who does writing at Paul Thurrott's site at thurrott.com, had an article about it and mentioned all these things. And he mentioned that it wasn't all bad news, because it seems like the ability to port iOS apps to Windows Phone is still going along strong. And that really did nothing for me, because I don't care about Android or about iOS. I've never had an iPhone. I've never had an iPad or any of those kind of things. So being able to run those apps really didn't excite me much at all. But then Brad kind of brought it around, and he's like, in almost all situations, every place there's an Android app, there's an iOS app that is as good or better than the Android app. And if Windows Phone ends up being able to run iOS apps, we're probably getting the same thing. And, I sat down and I thought about it, and I know Brad. I've talked to Brad on the phone in the last week, and I'm like, he makes a really good point. And so I guess we're just gonna have to see how this goes. I don't have any experience with iOS apps, but I'm hoping that they find their way onto the Windows Phone platform, and I can buy a couple and use these phones. I got this great 830 that I've been wanting to use, and so hopefully there's still light at the end of the tunnel. So the fact that iOS apps will be supported is probably a good thing, and probably be what I'll be able to use to go back to Windows Phone. So there's still hope that I get to find out if this Galaxy S5 blends or not. I'll let you know. All right, more happy news. This was a fun one that I saw this week. Back in the day, we had the Windows Insider program, and that gave us the ability to get Windows 10 preview bits early and all that, and give Microsoft feedback and things like that. And then we had the Windows Phone Insider, and that was a way to get Windows Phone 10 or Windows Phone 8 at that point builds before they were released to the carriers and all those kind of things. And the Windows Phone 10 builds was with the Windows Phone Insider. And these Insider programs are pretty great. And then this week, we got another one. We now have the Office Insider program, and you can sign up for the Office Insider program. And the link for that is products.office.com/en-us. If you speak English in the US, of course, /office-insider. And that is exactly what you think it is. It's a program for Office 2016 that will allow you to get into the fast ring of Office updates, and you'll get the new functionality and all the crazy things like that for the Office clients, Word, Excel, all that. Excuse me. This is open and free to anybody that has an Office 365 license, and it is Office 365 Home, Office 365 Personal, and Office 365 University. And if you've got any of those, you can go to that link and just walk you through. You're like, heck yeah, I want to install this. It takes you to a page, and it does a couple of cool things. It's got a thing where you can do like a click to run deal, and it will update your stuff. Or you can download the binaries for offline use. So for offline install. So that was nice of them. I do appreciate that. So I don't have Office 2016 installed everywhere yet. I know I'm kind of falling behind on that. And I haven't decided which machine will be lucky enough to be the Office 2016 Insider machine. But you better believe that I'll do it and check that out. It'll be free. It'll be nice. I'll use that. Okay. So a few folks in the chat room are chatting about the iOS thing. The consensus seems to be that iOS is an amazing app platform. Daniel Glenn says, I hope that Windows Phone is every bit as an amazing iOS app platform as iOS is. And then John Liu mentions he doesn't like the lockdownness of iPhones. I'm with you. Back when my first run through with Android, I was always, using kitchen sink ROMs and all that kind of stuff. And but this last time around, I just haven't done that with the S5. I kind of just want the dumb thing to work. I don't want to fiddle with it. And I'm thinking that since the phone itself is not iOS, maybe the walled garden bit won't hurt us on Windows Phone as much as it does on Apple. We'll see. I got this Android phone as a backup, so we'll see. All right. So one other thing. Oh, I do have a PowerShell thing. Oh, bless my heart. I thought I didn't have PowerShell this week. I I was wrong. I was scrolling down my notes here. So last week in the podcast, we talked about the Windows 10 update that was coming out, and this update has many names, and Windows 10 TH2 threshold 2. They're also calling it build 1511, so 2015 11th month. One thing that I thought was great was that the update for Windows 10 came on 11/12, November 12th here in the US, because we always put the month first before the day. For whatever reason, we got that backwards. So I talked a little bit about that last week, and then I also blogged it last week. So check that out at toddklindt.com/win10th2. And I don't hit everything on there because I just didn't have time to check them all out. But I did talk about some of my favorite pieces of the Windows 10 update, and those are more tiles. That's something that I have been whining and complaining about since Windows 10 first came out and I upgraded my first client. And that was the fact that I could have fewer tiles on my start screen with Windows 10 than I could in Windows 8, even though 10 was 2 higher than 8. And so they've added that now in Windows 10. If you've got this new build, you can go into your start settings inside the control panel and say show more tiles, and then you'll get that 4th column, which means the big deal is that you can have 2 large or 2 wide tiles next to each other. And for some of these little tablets that I have, I've got them as like dashboards just to have stuff on. So I've got as big of live tile as I can with my calendar, as big a live tile as I can with my email, as big a live tile as I can with the weather, and so on and so forth. And the fact that I couldn't have 2 big ones next to each other made this, it was very bad. I didn't like it, but that's all fixed now. So I upgraded all those tablets right away. They're all humming around. That's good. And then tablet mode in general just got some updates, and a lot of them were things that we could already do in Windows 8.1. And so, snapping them next to each other and pulling down and all that, but it's tablet mode's not too bad. The thing that I really like about tablet mode is you can just tap to get out of it. So if you need to, I had something the other day, when you have things in tablet mode, it used to only allow you to have one app, and it maximized it. And it was possible for you to get an app that couldn't understand tablet mode. So you would fire an app up and then it just wouldn't show up in tablet mode because it couldn't match the restrictions that tablet mode had. So it's nice that you can just hit it and pop back to desktop mode if you need it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was Windows Edge, or Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge is a sad state of affairs. It's Microsoft's new browser. I'm not a fan. Microsoft Edge had a lot of things against it. The first version that came out didn't have a home button, so you couldn't ever, you have to close your tab and then open another tab, just all kinds of stuff. It's not faster. It's not, I'm not enjoying Microsoft Edge. One of the things that was supposed to make Edge a little less sucky with this update was they were going to include the ability to have add-ins. There's a lot of popular add-ins. I've got a password manager that shows up as an add-in. None of those work with Edge. There are ad blockers. I don't advocate ad blockers. I see why people use them. None of those things work with Edge. And so we were kind of hoping that was going to get brought in. I've quit using Edge on Windows 10. I just can't. I use it a little bit with my tablets because it's a little more touch friendly. But other than that, I don't use it much. I mainly use Chrome. But with this TH2, this threshold update, we still did not get plugins. But what we did get is some other things. So now it can do a better job of syncing passwords and favorites and stuff, through OneDrive to all of your other Windows 10 boxes. And it has some weird limited support for casting things to DLNA devices and Miracast devices. So it's kind of like a Chromecast, things like that are out there. You can go to Pages and throw things out there. Honestly, I haven't played with it much because I just don't use Edge that much, but that's all out there. By now, you should have that update for Windows 10. If not, there's some things you can do. There's a lot of articles on the web about that. But if you're getting updates and all that, you should get that update pretty quick, and it's worthwhile to have. So go ahead and put it on your machine. And now I did this thing. I built anticipation for a PowerShell tip, and then I told you I didn't have one, and I do have one this week. And this is a weird one, and I haven't used it yet, so I'm kind of kind of interested to try this. As y'all know, I got this Microsoft band, and I love my band, and I love PowerShell. So those two things should go great together. One of the things I didn't like about the band is when I go into the Microsoft Health app, I can see all the times that I've run and all those things like that, but there's no way to get it out. I can't do anything with it. I can't sort or any of those things. I can't pull it into Excel and have fun with it. And that's always been a frustration for me. But some guy, and I've just done a terrible thing and forgotten his name, Stefan Stranger at Stranger, wrote a PowerShell module for the band, and you can go out to GitHub and download this. I'm linking to an article in the show notes in the chat room here to windowsitpro.com where Rod Trent talks about it. But this guy wrote some PowerShell commandlets that once you authenticate against Microsoft Health, you can do things like get your workouts and things like that through PowerShell. So it's kind of clunky right now. You got to sign up with a developer account and do some other things to get the tokens and those things, which is why I didn't do it, because Rod just published the article this afternoon. I was busy with other things, but I'm looking forward to that. Then I'll be able to use PowerShell, my beloved PowerShell, to get my workout information out of my band. And this is an important thing because this has been a discussion that we've had multiple times, and it's been had within the last 3 or 4 days between Daniel Glenn, Joanne Klein, and myself. And that is, if you work out and it's not recorded on your band, does it count? Of course not. Of course it doesn't count. Workouts now only count if you've got some electronic device that's monitoring you and all that. I think science has proven that you don't get skinnier if you run without some kind of fitness tracker on it. It just doesn't work that way anymore. That's how our grandparents did it. Well, actually, our grandparents, they did manual labor and just stayed skinny. But yeah, these days, if you don't have some kind of fitness tracker monitoring your every move, they don't count. It's just that simple. And now it's great that we can use the band to do this and then use PowerShell to pull that information out. And again, I haven't played with it yet. It might go in and add a minute to all my runs and subtract 1/3 of a mile. Hell, I don't know. But that's kind of cool. I'm glad there are people out there doing that. Okay, so let's move this on. And let's do the shameless self-promotion. Again, things are kind of quiet here. It's the end of the year. And SP TechCon is next year. Go to sptechcon.com. It's February 21st through the 24th in Austin, Texas. I'll be doing 3 sessions there. I'll be doing some stuff on identity, some stuff on hybrid. It's going to be a good time. So show up out there. Again, I'm going to be doing a thing in San Antonio that same week. So if you're at SP TechCon, pretty please with sugar on top, come find me the first day so that I can meet you, shake your hand, talk to you a little bit, because I'm going to be gone the rest of the days. So please come find me that first day. And that's, again, sptechcon.com, and that's February 21st through the 24th in Austin, Texas. Beautiful, sunny Austin, Texas. And the other thing, I'm kind of working on it now, but I may be doing a guest spot on another well-known podcast. I'll find that out here in the next week or so. And once that happens, I'll let you know. But I know a lot of folks that do podcasts, and so sometimes they get a chance to guest star on one of them. So I'll be doing that. Once I find that out, I'll let you know. But this is the building anticipation part again. So I'll let you know how that goes. All right, everybody, we're just a little bit past 37 minutes. Try to keep this short, sweet, and all that. Watching the game scores go through in the chat room. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back next week for 270. We'll be right here. That'll be Thanksgiving week here in the U.S., but I will do it anyway. And Lori will be gone, so it will just be a tremendous mess. I'm sure no links will be recorded, no titles or anything. It'll just be horrible, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. So thanks to everybody for that. I'll be in the chat room for a bit, but thanks. Have a good night.